こんにちは。ようこそ CCBT ミートアップハローラボラトリーズ Vol.01 ラボで駆動する世界の文化拠点へ。 CCBT の島田とバイオレットです。本日は CCBT にお越しいただき、またライブ配信にてご参加いただきありがとうございます。今回のミートアップは世界5都市のラボ型文化拠点からゲストをお招きするトークイベントの第1回目で、本シリーズを通して同様のミッションを共有する拠点とともに、アートとデジタルテクノロジーはいかにして人々の創造性を社会に発揮しうるのか、世界各地で取り組まれているイノベーションやコラボレーションの事例からその可能性を考えていきます。ひいてはシビッククリエイティブとは何か、そして CCBT のような文化拠点が社会に与えうるインパクトについて考え、共有する機会となれば幸いです。
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the first CCBT meetup, Hello from the Global Creative Laboratories. This is my colleague Shimada-san, and I am Violeta from CCBT. Thank you very much for joining us today here at the venue and through the live streaming. This is a very special event for us. It is the first edition of a series of meetups which aim to explore the potential of art and technology to enable civic creativity and innovation in society. And we will do this together with other sister institutions from around the world that share the same mission. Today we will get to understand, hopefully, what civic creativity means and the impact institutions such as ours have in society.
初回となる今回、ラボで駆動する世界の文化拠点とのテーマ設定のもと、世界を代表するラボ型文化拠点、イギリス・ブリストルより都市再生の中核を担うウォーターシェッド、オランダ・アムステルダムよりテクノロジーの民主化を試みるワーグ・フューチャーラボ、台北より芸術文化による継続的な実験に取り組む台湾コンテンポラリーカルチャーラボ、山口よりメディアテクノロジーを取り入れた新しい芸術表現の追求に取り組む、山口情報芸術センターこと YCAM、そして去年10月にオープンしたばかりのデジタルテクノロジーの活用を通じて人々の創造性を社会に発揮するための活動拠点 CCBT が集いました。これら拠点はアーティストや市民をはじめとするすべての人々とのコラボレーションを通して人々の創造力を育み、より良い社会を実現するという共通のミッションを持っています。それぞれの拠点の代表としてお越しいただいた登壇者の皆様をご紹介します。ウォーターシェッドの代表を務めるクレア・レディントンさん、ワーグフューチャーラボメイク代表オープンウェットラブ責任者のルーカス・エバーズさん、C ラブこと台湾コンテンポラリーカルチャーラボのマーケティング&パブリックプログラム部長のリュウ・ユーチンさん、そして CCBT のHirota、また、YCAM の社会連携担当で本日モデレーターを務めていただくSuganuma Kiyoshiさんです。
The first edition is focused on laboratory-driven cultural facilities, and we are delighted to share the evening with these super relevant institutions in the regions and fields. Watershed in the UK, which focuses on urban regeneration, Waag Futurelab in the Netherlands, which aspires to democratize technology, and Taiwan's C-Lab, which engages in sustained experimentation through arts and culture. From Japan, the Yamaguchi Center of Art and Media, which has been pursuing new artistic expression incorporating media technology, and of course, the Civic Creative Base Tokyo, an activity center that just opened last October to bring people's creativity to society through the use of digital technology. These centers of innovation have in common the will to give people the tools to imagine and contribute to a better future for society, engaging artists, audiences, and a diverse range of collaborators. In representation of these institutions, we have with us today Clare Reddington, the CEO of Watershed, Lucas Evers, the Make Program Head and the lead of the Open Wet Lab at Waag Futurelab, Yu-Ching, the Head of Marketing and Public Programs Department at CLAF, the CCBT's Director Fumi Hirota, and as moderator of the panel, Suganuma Kiyoshi from YCAM.
世界各地から CCBT にお越しいただき、それぞれの取り組みおよび成果について共有いただけることを光栄に思っております。この機会を通してより良い都市や社会、テクノロジー、未来の実現に共に取り組むための新たなパースペクティブを得る有益でインスパイアリングな会になることを確信しています。 本日は第1部にて各拠点からのプレゼンテーションがあり、休憩を挟んで第2部でディスカッション、そして QA セッションを予定しております。長丁場になりますが、お楽しみいただけましたら幸いです。
Thank you all for accepting our invitation and for sharing your experience and knowledge with a new like CCBT and by extension with Japanese creators and curious citizens. I'm sure it will be a very useful and inspiring talk that will open new perspectives on how to work together on improving our future. We will start with a round of presentations where our guests will introduce their activities, and after a break we will continue with the discussion, and at the end there will be also time for questions from the audience. We hope you enjoy and learn a lot today. Let's begin with the presentations.
Like this? Okay. I'm going to try really hard not to speak too fast for the interpreters, because when I get nervous, I speak quite quickly. I'm Clare, hi. I'm from Watershed in Bristol, and today I'm going to talk to you a bit about Watershed and how we invest in wonder and discovery, and why we believe that art and technology hubs, clusters, and ecologies are optimal places to foreground the power of art and imagination, enabling us to spark a journey towards a more playful, inclusive, and sustainable future. This is a quote by Rebecca Solnit, which I'll just read out if you don't read English. It says, "Hope locates itself in the premise that we don't know what will happen. In the spaciousness of uncertainty is room to act." And I always think about the kinds of labs that we're talking about today as being those places for spaciousness of uncertainty, is what's really exciting about them for me. So first, I'm going to talk a bit about the creative ecology that we're based in. Bristol has had a profound impact on the type of organization that we are, but our vision and values have also influenced its development. So we're based in the city of Bristol in the southwest of the UK. Our city is famous for its creativity and innovation. And although we're a very small city, we've got more than 130 film and TV companies with a global center for natural history filmmaking. So something like 80% of all natural history films still come through Bristol. And we have a thriving digital media industry where tech giants work alongside smaller startups and digital agencies. Bristol is unorthodox. It's diverse, rebellious, and pioneering. We generate independent voices, value sustainability, and embrace diversity. 92 languages are spoken in our tiny city, and these attitudes show up in the work that is made in our own streets. This is Luke Jerram's Park and Slide, which installed an inflatable water slide in a hill in the very middle of the city centre. It shows up in the internationally renowned artists we export, like Banksy and Massive Attack, who both have their home in Bristol. And I think it shows up in Watershed. So Watershed was opened in 1982, and we were set up as the UK's first media centre. Nobody really knew what that meant back in 1982, but really it was about responding to the convergence agenda of communications and media that was beginning to emerge. Watershed is set on Bristol's historic harbour side. You can see the water always looks like that. And when Watershed first opened, we were pretty much alone in a historical part of the city. And so slowly over time, our animation and the dedication that we have to the place and to the communities around us have seen a profound change in the environment, which is now connected, bustling, and alive. Our vision today is based on the importance of togetherness. We believe that to address the really complex set of challenges that the world is facing, we need to develop new imaginative capacity. And the best way to do that, to do anything, is together. So whether it's watching a film, making a piece of art, or discussing either of them in the bar, togetherness is what makes a hopeful future possible. This is our building before it was done up quite some time ago. We're a cultural venue and a hub. We're based in this old Victorian goods shed. We've got 3 cinema screens, a cafe bar, and a conferencing space. We're a landlord. We run a co-working space called the Pervasive Media Studio, which I'm going to talk most about today. Last year, we made just under £5 million, which was a lot less than normal because of COVID. And we employ about 110 people. We sold 63,000 tickets, worked with 16,000 young people, and our artist community reached 30 million people across the world with their projects. At Watershed, we believe that the screening of a film is a springboard to a wider discussion about society and culture with citizens and communities. Film and cinema sits at the intersection of popular entertainment, commerce, culture, and art. So film as popular entertainment is pretty well catered for, like here, by multiplexes and by streaming platforms. So that takes care of the kind of mainstream entertainment bit. We provide audiences in Bristol a deep engagement to global diversity of film culture. We work in partnership with local and national organizations and individual practitioners to connect stories to relevant communities. Partnership is key in making sure that the work we do is meaningful and resonant. We bring together the inspiration of watching films in the cinema with creative aspirations of making those films. So we have a targeted talent development program to nurture the next generation of filmmaking voices, and we provide professional development for those interested in film exhibition and audience engagement to develop their skills, knowledge, and confidence. This is the Pervasive Media Studio. It always looks like that, obviously. The Pervasive Media Studio is a collaboration between Watershed, the University of the West of England, and the University of Bristol, and we established it back in 2008. We support a creative community to make extraordinary and inspiring work. We draw on the research of all 3 partners, foregrounding the power of art and the imagination to direct technology towards a more inclusive, playful, and sustainable world. So the studio is a place of creative collision. We bring together practice and research, thinking and making, all disciplines and all approaches. We make room for uncertainty, and we encourage unexpected things to happen. So we have about 180 practitioners in this space, and we give them access to desk space, to resources, to advice and equipment at no financial cost to them. So we're gifting all of that stuff to the community that we work with. We make research and development more tangible for our public audiences through our public program. And the work is locally rooted and internationally collected, so that that community of residents work with a much wider community of residents and collaborators across the world. I have been lucky. I've traveled around the world talking to people running art and technology hubs, and we've never really found anyone quite like us. And I think that's partly because we have a very productive relationship with universities, which is quite difficult to achieve, and also because we mix commercial and cultural. So we have people working in digital agencies and for-profit making businesses, as well as artists, and everyone gets better, their ideas get richer because of that. So the residents receive desk space, community engagement, business development support, access to resources, and support around climate change and inclusion. They get profile, and most of all, they get community to share ideas and challenges with. We ask them to be open and generous with their ideas. So that's what's written into the contract instead of money, so that everyone can benefit. So, what kind of residents do we support? I'm going to tell you the story of some of the people we work with, and hopefully that will give you a better idea. We're lucky enough to work with people at all stages of their careers. We have people at the early stages of new ideas, and companies who are creating multiple forms of value, so creative, cultural, and commercial value. Last year, residents recorded an annual turnover of £6 million, which was £4 million than the previous year because of COVID, because everyone's having a tough time. But they created work that went into schools, hospitals, and the social care system, as well as into other arts and cultural environments. So this amazing picture, I'm very proud of this one.
ということで、この素晴らしい写真、クラスルームと呼ばれているんですけれども、ローランス・フー・チャーズ・ゴーリングによって作られました。
Bristol born and bred. He came to us in 2018 through a funded artist residency with an idea to make an exhibition that showcased the triumphs of the people of the African diaspora. So COVID meant that those plans for an exhibition had to be put on hold, and so Cargo Classroom was born. Featuring music from Massive Attack and poems from Lawrence, Cargo Classroom is an online education resource that challenges the narratives that we are mostly told in our classrooms in the UK about slavery, if any narratives are told at all. So cargo lessons highlight the accomplishments and achievements of people of the African diaspora, and they're used now across the world. The BBC have made a documentary about them, and there is also a Futurelab course to help teachers to feel brave and confident enough to teach these stories to their children, so that we don't just think that white people were responsible for abolishing slavery. Every year we fund an artist residency program, and this was one of our artists in residence from last year. Shruk is an artist, a belly dancer, a drag performer, an engineer, and an LGBTQ refugee from Egypt. Through their winter residency, they explored how to make a belly dancing robot that moves autonomously to Egyptian music. So the final piece that they created, which was very much a work in progress, was a choreographed duet with the machine as part of a new performance piece. We make sure that everybody gets their work in front of public audiences as early as possible to test things, to make them better. This is Everything is Music, and I put this in because this is probably on the more commercial end of what we do. It's a celebration of the people and places that form Bristol's musical heritage. So it's created by a commercial studio and a music promoter, and the platform is a geolocated mobile experience. It's free to use, and there's about 250 hotspots across the city celebrating that rich musical history. And now that platform is being expanded and rolled out across the world with various bands and various musical offerings. Oh, Rapongi. Since starting in 2012, our Playable City program has become a global movement of playable city interventions that use technology to connect people to each other and to the places that they live and work. Over the last decade, we've worked with over 74 partners and 50 creatives, from Lagos to Recife, Singapore to Austin, reaching 1 million people globally. This is Hello Lamppost by Pan Studio in Roppongi some years ago. It was our first Playable City Award winner, and they've now grown this business into a startup that's all around the world. The British Council, who was our partner in this project, have been just hugely influential in building Playable City and helping us to find partners and collaborators, especially the three sat here who have helped us with Playable City for a long time. So I'm very delighted to see them. And we've just, after a break for 3 or 4 years, we've just announced 6 new Playable City commissions, which have got £45,000 to build an urban prototype that will be showcased in Bristol in July 2023. So the projects place play at the heart of the city, sparking imagination and conversation about inclusion, sustainability, surveillance, and the future of cities. And I'm just going to show you some of them. So Squeeze Me uses inflatable soft robotic technology to create a tactile environment. So up to 10 huge inflatable and illuminated robotic creatures will be wrapped around lampposts and other street furniture, inviting audiences and passers-by to hug, squeeze, lean, or poke these. And the creatures will respond with changing shapes, light and sound. And those sort of changing interactions will get better the more that people collaborate with each other. This is the House of Weaving Songs, which is by Fozia Ishmael and Ayan Kimli, who are the Dakan Collective. And these are inspired by Somali nomadic structures. So their relatives in Somalia are really, really experiencing climate change. And so they wanted to think about how do we use those first-hand experiences in a project in Bristol. So the interactive installation will be co-created with Somali communities, integrating Somali weaving songs and woven tapestries in an experiment that will connect the city to those cultural practices and inspire people to fight climate change. And this one's pretty cool. So, How Not to Be Hit by a Self-Driving Car is going to be created by artist and game designer Tomo Kihara, Saki Coffin, and Dan Coppin, who are here of Studio Playful. It's a game that challenges people to avoid being detected as a human in the eye of an AI. So with surveillance cameras becoming ubiquitous and smarter, they're asking questions about how does a city see us, and what kind of city do we want to live in. So what's really exciting is that Tomo and Playful are also part of the opening exhibition here in CCBT, which is 3 days' time? March 4th, a little bit longer. Yeah, look at the panic. Not 3 days' time, they've got ages. So you should come and find that. And it makes me really extremely happy that we've commissioned this work, partly because Tomo has been part of Playable City here in Tokyo that we've run for the last decade with Minami and British Council and Rhizomatics. We think that artists and cultural organisations play a unique role in reimagining the cities of the future, ensuring that citizens are engaged, that public spaces are open, and that infrastructure solutions are people-centred, appropriate and textured. And one of the things that we believe is that a creative producer sits at the heart of making this kind of possibility for change. So over the last 15 years, Watershed has pursued this belief that by growing a team of producers in Bristol and by nurturing and supporting producers across the world, we can grow that network of collaborators. So 7 years ago, we began an ambitious journey to create an international talent development program, bringing together creative producers from cities across the globe. So we built on the Playable City work that we've just talked about, and we created 15 incredible leaders working across contemporary art, placemaking, community engagement, corporate collaboration, urban innovation, social activism, and more. And that network has really profoundly changed our work and given us collaborators that we continue to work with on Playable City projects today. Here are some of them. So the international approach, which was mainly facilitated by British Council, helped us to create hugely fruitful and really crucially equitable collaborations. So in July 21, we created a set of creative labs that ran simultaneously in Lagos, Bristol, and Durban. So the labs and the activity that went around them supported 18 young creative entrepreneurs, so 6 from each of those cities, connecting them internationally. The themes were developed in response to local need and context, and the process tested a new model of hybrid, so digital and physical labs that helped with international collaboration and also, of course, environmental sustainability. And last year, we brought together a diverse group of artists from Bath and Seoul in Korea to participate in a project called Gathering Moss, exploring what a future world might look like and what it might mean to be a global citizen in the face of planetary change like climate crisis. One young artist had an amazing idea for a film, visualizing future climate change scenarios using UN data. They created it. His film is now embedded into all of Watershed's climate change training, and National Geographic have just picked that up. Over the last 15 years, we've seen major changes in the Creative Technology Center, from the growth of immersive to data capture, social media, AI, blockchain, et cetera, and with these changes has come really understandable, heightened kind of awareness from the public and concern. So we think that while technology used to represent a shiny new future, it's now more often associated with threats to people and the planet. In Bristol, we've seen demographic change and gentrification. Larger tech companies have moved into the city, and there's been greater inward investment, but deeper levels of inequity. Those things aren't widely shared. And for us, Brexit, the climate emergency, and a decade of conservative-led austerity have created an atmosphere of threat in our cultural, social, and every bit of our lives in the UK. So we believe that we have a duty to engage with these challenges, and the studio community's experience around ethics, placemaking, and experience design, all of which are really important, have a part to play in social and climate justice. So in 2018, Watershed declared a climate emergency. We formed an environmental action group, and we employed a environmental emergencies action researcher, thinking about what sustainability means to our own business and to the wider creative community. So a lot of the smaller companies that we're working with are worried about climate change. They want to know how to do something, but often they feel kind of paralyzed in the face of what to do. So we've worked with them to create a creative climate action toolkit, specifically helping small businesses and freelancers to think about how they should act. It's a free online tool, and it's available for everyone to download. Our values are inclusive, open and honest, make things happen, entrepreneurial, and really important, celebratory. And at the heart of everything we do is an ethos of responsibility and kindness. We've invested significant resource in thinking about organizational inclusion and developing industry-led methodologies for recruitment, which mean that we interview absolutely everybody that applies to a job at Watershed, because that way they don't have to write in a specific way or have a specific kind of CV to show up and work for us. Our commitment to access and inclusion is also shown around this, which we call balance and belonging. I'm just going to try and read this a bit more. So this is about moving away from demographic benchmarking when you're starting to think about inclusion and starting to really understand the intersectional identities of the people that you work with. So balance for us is about getting a balance in our teams, a demographic balance. So there's not too much of one type of person working with us. And belonging is about how their intersectional identities influence how much they feel like they belong in the workplace. So do all the young women feel like they have to do all the tidying up all the time? Do all the men feel like they have the most ability to make decisions? We want to know, how do people's identities affect how they feel at work? And we're working on that with our artist communities as well, because balance and belonging is really key to making change. So lots of this thinking puts us at odds with funders and commissioners. Our practice isn't straightforward, and our emphasis on working with people, kindness and care can look really expensive. And this is the International Futures Forum's 3 Horizons model. It's a methodology that's been really deeply useful for us to understand our place in the creative ecology and an innovation ecosystem. It helps us to understand why Horizon 1, so that's the people who are business as usual, don't understand us. It helps us to understand that shouting at them and getting cross probably isn't going to do us any good. And it helps us to really double down on the fact that we're a Horizon 2 organization, and our job is to make a thriving world for the emergent systems. So to create the conditions for Horizon 3 to come. And I think lots of places that are tech labs or cultural hubs have that kind of enabling role. And this is the 2-loop system, which is another piece of methodology that's been really helpful for us in thinking about what we do. So we think that our job is to identify and champion pioneers, to forge and to nourish the networks of the future. And it's also to assist things to die. Creative people are really bad at stopping things. But as hubs, we need to participate in hospicing and composting. So taking the bits of things that work, things that are rich in nutrients that have, and help them move on to the next thing in an emergent system. So we're not trying to shut down business as usual without taking anything from it, but our job is to help things keep moving. We believe that cooperation is a more powerful force for good than competition. So we test out alternative ways to live, work, and play by hosting challenging conversations and by encouraging responsible experimentation. We invite the widest range of people we can to ask questions about what we want from technology and society and why. And we don't shy away from the difficult issues of our time, but we do also try to maintain a spirit of hope about the future. So this says, to hope is to give yourself to the future, and that commitment to the future is what makes the present inhabitable. Also Rebecca Solnit. I just sit at home and read Rebecca Solnit writing about hope, really. So whilst our sense of optimism has taken a few knocks in the past years, we do continue to believe that art and technology together can offer us opportunities for new forms of expression and experience, and that to invest in play, wonder, and joy can influence the world for the better. Thank you.
Clare さんありがとうございます。 Thank you very much, Claire. We would like to now invite Lucas Evers from Waag from Netherlands, please. Please welcome him with a round of applause.
Yeah, thank you, CCBT, for inviting me. It's really great to be here, not only to meet you, but also to meet Clare, which gave a fantastic presentation. Thank you for that. But also C-Lab and YCAM. And it's my first time in Japan, so I'm amazed already by what I've seen in terms of creativity. Not only here, but also in the little bit of Tokyo that I've seen. I'm going to try to keep it within 30 minutes. So my name is Lucas Evers again. I'm from Waag Futurelab in Amsterdam. And we look at technology. We look at technology as culture, as something that nests within society, and we look at how society reacts to the technology and how we can think of what we want and what we do not want from the technology, the way it manifests itself, and how we can design paths for change with the help of the public, with civic society, but also with artists, scientists, designers, and other stakeholders. So that is what I'm going to explain to you a little bit about, how we work, how our organization is structured, and then also give you a couple of examples of the way we engage civic society in there, and how we use certain methods that are also very open to do so. So, like Claire has used Rebecca Solnit, we have Donna Haraway as a little bit of a motto of our organization, staying with the trouble. So technology is not neutral. It leaves a lot of things behind, and it is made by us. And in such a way, it is very important to realize that, that it is not a given, but something you can change. But also something you have to live with and sometimes have to clean up, if I may say so. Our organization operates at the intersection of science, technology, and the arts. So we think it's very important to work with all these three types of fields of expertise to get deep into the technology in order to invite an audience to take part in our programs, making it an instrument for social change, guided by fairness, openness, and inclusion. We're housed in that building, an old city gate that has been there since more than 400 years. And inside of it is a historical anatomical theater that had a dissection practice that was the cradle of medical science in the Netherlands, where publicly bodies were dissected in order to understand the human body. First, I want to say something about our mission. It's to contribute to research, design, and the development of a sustainable and just society. And how do we do that? By collectively researching emerging technology, questioning its underlying cultural assumptions. By experimenting and designing alternatives on the basis of public values and with the public. So we're not an organization that does public research with public means, with public money, but involving the public as our research community. To develop an open and fair, inclusive future together with society. So That painting of Rembrandt van Rijn is a painting that was not situated in the historical anatomical laboratory that is in our building, but it's a painting about the practice before it had a fixed theater in our building. But the theater itself is still used for a lot of public programs where we do also other dissection practices, dissection of how technology happens to be in our society. This is one of the first projects Waag did before we went into the historical building. It's called the Digital City, and it was one of the first graphic websites in the Netherlands at the beginning times of the internet in 1994, when most of the internet was still dialed in with an analog phone on an analog modem. You could get a subscription free to become part of the Digital City, and you were given a free email address, 2 megabytes of web space, and an internet connection. And it meant a lot for digitizing the society in the Netherlands. 2 megabytes of web space on the ancient Mosaic browser. And you can see it had squares. It was built according to the physical city. It had squares and libraries and cafes and a lot of personal pages, and there was a lot of exchange going on. It still is, in the meantime, a small commercial ISP, so it still exists. Waag is consistent of 3 parts. It does research with 3 research groups, Code, Life, and Make. We still also have a research group, Learn, but that is going to change into supporting the second pillar, which are the academies that I will come back to later. That involves a lot of public to do learning, to learn a practice. And we do a lot of public events. So the research. Here you see a research that comes from the so-called Open Wet Lab, where the public is guided to experiment with life sciences, but also artists and scientists collaborate in making artworks like these. This is an artwork made by these 3 persons here, Günter Seefried, Roland van Dierendonck, and Federico Moffatto. They used ASCII code to make a code that represents the bull's head, and then they used CRISPR technique to construct the bull's head, and the 3 other pictures you see when they CRISPR the code back. So you see a lot of mistakes, which actually means that they did the CRISPR protocol right. Without going into the technical details, it's great to have Georg here, who could say much more about that. But it's a fantastic artwork that made a very innovative use of, at that time, a very novel technique called CRISPR. So here you see the 3 elements of our research model. We have an exploratory end, where we do work with artists, mostly with artists and scientists. So we do a lot of experiments. The middle part is more the design-driven part, where we, if we think the experiment is going right, we try to make a sort of a societal prototype, where you see here on the, for your left, a work of art by Kate Crawford and Vladan Joler, dissecting AI and also its energy use and all the raw materials that are needed for it. In the middle, you see a workshop we did at a very big music festival, Lowlands, where people could bring their own cell phone, hammering it open and taking the raw materials out, like cobalt and coltan that come from conflict mining zones in, for instance, Congo. So to understand all the raw materials used for our communication equipment. That led eventually to the fact that we are the producer of a smartphone called Fairphone that is not entirely fair, but much fairer than other phones. You can take it apart, you can replace parts, which you cannot do with other phones. and it uses raw materials that don't come from militarized mines, that don't come from mines that have child labor, that come from workers' places in Shenzhen area in China that work on contract. So it is a much fairer phone, and it is on the market. I think it's also important to show this here, the way we see this civil, private, and public sectors interacting. What is public and what is where you work with civic society, because public is not the public, but it is public technologies that are open, that can be used by anyone, as opposed to private, closed, and with whom do you work there is very important to us. Going to the 3 research labs, here you see code and what it does research about. It researches the future of the internet and its applications in a frame where, again, we try to make that open again by working with this notion of the public stack. A lot of private stack technology is closed in its software, in its hardware, but also in its business model. In the middle you have the state stack, or government owned or operated stack. We are pleading for a public stack that is entirely open, with open source software, open source hardware, open source business models, open data sets, and open access. Code exists of a couple of labs. Where at the meeting of the labs, we happen to have research groups that work with a more fundamental research questions, and underneath it are a couple of labs that work with an applied research question. So we have the Future Internet Lab, the Digital Commons Lab, and the Human AI Lab. And what, for instance, the Digital Commons Lab does is researching data sets that can be seen as a commons that is a data set that belongs to society at large and should not be owned by a private company or a governmental body alone, which is, for instance, biodata, genetic data derived from us citizens. I'll come back to that later. I'm going to go a bit quicker because I see I'm running through time. We asked ChatGPT about our research values and about the research values of open technology, and it came with surprisingly politically correct answers. Please go to our website. It's fantastic because it's right. It gives the right answer in this case. Another research group is called LIFE, and that researches how agency of citizens related to their own health and that of the planet and fellow species can be strengthened. And it does that in 2 labs, a Smart Citizens Lab that I will tell much about later because there is a lot of interaction with the public and us, and the Urban Ecology Lab. Here you see a lichen workshop where we invited the public together with Adriana Knauf, who is an artist who's researching as a transgender person how she can go onto space flights. She requires to bring aromatase, that is a medication for her in order to condition her gender. And she's researching actually in a creative way how to create an organism that could possibly produce that. So she did a lot of research into lichen extremophiles that probably are going to survive all the climate disaster ahead, but are also a very good indicator for climate change. So if you learn how to read lichen also in the inner city, you can see whether the certain lichens that are seen more nowadays, since the last decades and climate change is developing itself, whether climate change is happening at a certain area. So that is a lot of workshops we do with the public, trying to learn them how to use these species as a climate change bioindicator. MAKE is the group that I lead, where we have a research question about the made world in times wherein you can imagine almost anything can be made by technology. It's good to question yourself what needs to be made or how it should be made and who should make it. So that is what we do in the Open Design Lab. That again is about opening design processes, making design process collaborative and open as an open source and an open business model. The Open Wet Lab, where we experiment with our audience to work with life science techniques. A textile lab, and a lab where we, that is called the Space Lab, where we are working with artists that work with satellite data for remote sensing, again in the frame of climate change, but also to include audience to work with such data. I will come back to that later as well, explaining a little bit about the labs later. So our second pillar is our academies. Currently we have a Biohack Academy that is going to open its next edition, that I have the honor to open from the Bio Club Tokyo at Fab Cafe Tuesday. And it's a 10-week course where people learn to make their laboratory hardware, laboratory protocol, experiment and understand life sciences in a different manner than you do in universities or commercial labs. The other lab is the other academy is the Fabric Academy, which is also very much oriented at working with biomaterials for textile production. So they work with mycelium, they work with bacterial cellulose, etc. All kinds of materials you can grow yourself. We will be starting a project that will grow its own natural fibers and biochromes locally in Amsterdam and then produce new textiles from that. And the Fabric Academy, again, is a 6-month course where you also use digital techniques to work on your textile production. Let me see. This is a slide about the Fab Academy. I guess that the Fab Academy of the collaborative Fab Labs across the globe is not is known to many of you. Again, a 6-month course where you learn to digitally work with CNC mills, with 3D printers, etc. You learn to make your own hardware. Coding, electronics, and end with a personal project that incorporates that all, which is also a course we are doing since, I think, more than 10 years. Biohack Academy I already explained, and we are working on a couple of new academies. Here you see AI Academy in preparation, where we also worked with Tomo Kihara, who is here. We worked with artists from Israel, from Slovenia, from the Netherlands, from the US. You see them here, and here's a fantastic artwork of Michon Zeraviv questioning normalcy, because that is what actually a lot of AI systems do. They select out what is not normal, and how can you train it to select normalcy. I'm going to skip these. Well, quick quick one about this one, which is also part of both the work we do in the Open Wet Lab, but Spela Petric is a very interesting artist we work a lot with. Here you see a microscopic film she made about the so-called stomata on the lower parts of leaves that go open and close, taking oxygen in or putting oxygen out, taking CO2 in. And she has made those films and gave them to a lip reader that tried to make words of it. So you can ask yourself, are plants that intelligent that they can say something about climate change? That's also a question she put into the award-winning work you see here on the left, Play, where she trains an AI to understand a cucumber plant. Here is another academy in the making, Public Stack Academy. I also explained already something about our public stack approach. And our director, Marleen Sticker, is working a lot with Kate Crawford as both professors of practice at the School of Applied Sciences in Amsterdam. So we are also thinking about starting a donut economy. Now, the part where we work a lot with citizens is this, where I will lead you through a couple of projects where we have a lot of civic participation and co-creation in projects, and I will explain a method that we apply there. So the Smart Citizens Lab has a very interesting project called Hollandse Luchten, where we actually equip a lot of citizens around the area, the larger metropolitan area of Amsterdam, where there's also a lot of industry and air pollution. And we brought them into a lot of co-creative sessions where they learned how to decide what to put in their sensors, the Holu kit, as you see. The Holu kit is a sensor part that citizens around Amsterdam have on their houses to create a big measuring network for air pollution. And as part of the Open Next project, which is a larger European collaboration, which we do amongst others with the University of Berlin, we made a co-creation method for that. I have a later slide for that as well. The Space Lab has this idea of mattering, making people aware of different ways of looking at the matter. You can look at matters of fact, that is what science does. You can look at matters of interest, that is what entrepreneurs do. But you can also look at matters of concern. And if you combine these two, or these three, or even a fourth one, which is matters of care, that comes after that, you get different perspectives on environmental issues, on societal issues, etc. And that's what we do here. We do work in a project called More Than Planet with a couple of artists, among which you here see Territorial Agency, that is looking at the so-called sensitive zone, that is the zone of all our land, and I think that's also crucial for Japan, that is surrounded by water, but also Netherlands, which is a delta. It's looking at climate change in 2050, when water is really expected to be much higher, how we're going to deal with that then. So this sensitive zone is the living part of the sea's surface where all the living creatures are, but that is also the area or the level of water that is going to rise and will come inland. What kind of industries and polluted areas it will take in. So that is a part of this matter of concern and the way an artist group like Territorial Agency is looking at that. The upper picture is of forensic architecture looking at cloud studies and how polluted air is coming across the land, which is also a type of research that is typically done by artists and not so much by scientists, because it is working with this idea of concern. Here you see it a little bit put into a graph where you have the interests and the concerns on the other sides, and how citizens are not only citizens but also consumers. So that's also something to make all the audiences that we work with aware of. Here you have this open environmental sensing toolkit, which is the result of this open Next project I just mentioned you. And you see that you can find it on our website. You can use it. It's something to fill in, but it's going from it's a description of yourself, but also your interest, and then to looking at technologies available to create a sensing toolkit, and then go into what do you want to sense, etc. In fact, that is based on an older project called our Co-Creation Navigator, which you can also find a method from on our website. These are used to make these very DIY prototypes, but still these contain a temperature, humidity, noise level, air pressure, carbon dioxide sensors that are interesting for that context. I'm going to skip this one. It's an older project. Yeah, but interesting again to mention, because I think it's going to be a fantastic project, Modern Planet, where we not only work with artists, but also with a B Corp, Space for Good, that is delivering all sorts of data sets coming from satellites. And they particularly want to work with us because they're very interested in working with creatives, artists, designers, but also with the public. The lower picture is their work in mapping conflict areas, and mapping as particular as you can see the red dots are bombardments that were successful, and the yellow ones that were not successful. So leaving unexploded things behind. It's interesting to go from sensing to this slide, where we have been working again with a company called Zodak. Zodak is an industrial sensor making company, but it's interesting to see whether the fact that they are interested to work in a citizen context, making a new type of sensor that is made with the wishes of a citizen community to work with a sensor for citizen sensing and measuring the health of their environment. Yeah, here in the frame of the Future Internet Lab and the Arts Formation project, we've been working with Tomo on his work, Their Talk. It's very interesting that Their Talk gives you an insight in all those bubbles you can get in if you're using TikTok. It was launched at Waag, at least for the Netherlands, during Museums Night. But just the day before, our director had a letter in a major newspaper making a plea for a European values version of TikTok that is not extractive, that is inclusive of the wishes of the public. And that meant for a lot of attention during Museums Night. I think Tomo couldn't handle the mass of people that went along his installation that evening. Yeah. I'm not going to go into this one. Quickly into this one, I already mentioned we work with citizens on creating a new sort of governance for genetic data derived from individuals, because there's a lot of demand for that in genetic research. We try to set up something that is different than the much used service called 23andMe or MyHeritage, where you can leave your genetic data. We made a small ledger type of application that protects your own genetic data, and we're trying to, using co-creation methods, to set up a thing called Gene Co-op, where people can leave their genetic personal data and only decide themselves to what research they allow it to be used. Then quickly, something about a European project we are involved in, Science, Technology and the Arts. It's a large project of the European Commission that values the input of artists in innovative processes within society, but also in industry. It has a couple of pillars. It has a prize, it has Start Talks, it has lighthouse projects where artists work on greater innovation projects in Europe. 2 minutes, then I'm, yeah. So here you see a couple of results. Project Alias is silencing your computer if it's listening with you, by which you get sometimes unwanted advertisements. Anatomy of an AI System was also another one by Vladan Jolar and Kate Crawford. And here you again see something about the pillars. I think it's a fantastic project of the European Commission, meaning not only a lot for the artists that participate, but also for what they're able to deliver to society. And then, my closing remark about inviting the public into co-creation for this idea of civic empowerment. I think it's very important to realize that if we value to work with citizens, like we do a lot in environmental sensing at Waag, by co-creating technology based on public values within the context of our culture and creative labs, we should also try to create a context to do so for society at large. Because often, if they go beyond what they can do with us in our creative labs, they still encounter closed technologies or companies that are not that well accustomed to work with them, making their own sensor technologies, etc. So I would like to end with these closing remarks that it is important to think of critical making in times where making is critical. Thank you very much.
Next, we are inviting Ms. Yu-Ching from Taiwan. So, great round of applause to her, please.
My name is Yu-Ching. I'm from Taiwan Contemporary Culture Lab. And this is a bird view of the whole C-Lab. It's about 7 hectares, and which is around 10 football fields. And this is in a central location in the Taipei city. And from these pictures, you could see C-Lab is surrounded by high buildings, and it's in a luxury buildings areas in Taipei. And also, we are an old military base, so you could see from the picture, the space is quite open and vacant. All right, it's a short history from 1939. At that time, Taiwan was in a colonial period from Japan. And so at that time, this field is Taiwan Governor General's Office, which is the Industrial Research Institute of Japan. And they do science and industrial research in this park. And after that, in 1950s, the Taiwan government, they come from China, and they transform this place to the Taiwan Air Force Command Headquarters. So it's Cold War Military Command Center at that time. And from 2018, the government transformed this place to a cultural lab. And this is we are Taiwan Contemporary Cultural Lab, and it's a cultural and innovation-driven hub and labs. There are three main directions we work for. We work for art, technology, and society. And this is our organization structure. We are around 50 people, and then we are now operated by one foundation. It's Taiwan Living Arts Foundation, and we are fully supported by Ministry of Culture of Taiwan. And from last year, we also rent our spaces to other for the purpose of exhibitions or performances, or rent our space for activities. And we have one operations office for now, and two platforms. One is contemporary art platform, and the other is technology media platform. And for the contemporary art platform, it encourages experiments in creative concept, production techniques, exhibitions, and different ways of presentations. So the platform serves as a matchmaker between creative and technical talents. We have 4 projects under that, which are Creators Program, and we have Play Arts Festival each year, and we will hold 1 annual exhibition every year. And for now, we have 1 research project. We work with Asia Art Archive, and the project is Independent Art Spaces of Taiwan. So for the Creators Program, this is residency programs, and it started from 2018, and we support creative projects, and we also cultivate talents through this residency program. And we do open call every year, and the open call based on 4 categories, including future vision, and a spirit of experimentation, and context of humanities, and also interdiscipline. And all the cultural project proposals are reviewed by a committee, and the selected groups, we support them with money and the residential office space. And also we do networking for them with established artists. And also we provide some technical teams to help them to develop their project. And for the creators, we also work with some international organizations, such as Asia Culture Center and YCAM in France, which I will introduce later. And also Critical Path in Australia. And this is based in Australia to develop modern dance and contemporary dancing movements. Okay, and the other platform is technology media platform. It's we taking technology as its core, and the platform focuses on experimentation of some innovation and social connection to work in the cultural field, both in the cultural field and also on technology field. And we do, the main project, we have 2 labs under that. One is Future Vision Lab, and the other is Taiwan Sound Lab. And we also have a biennial sound festival and also wandering sound projects under that platform. There is a video which can show what the Future Vision Lab does these days. Regarding Future Vision Lab, actually it works hard on a dome space, which the dome space is for immersive audio and visual presentation, exhibitions, and projection art. You could see from the PPT, the dome is around 12 meters diameter and 6 meter height. And the inner surface of dome is smooth and semicircular, and it contains 180-degree video projection and a surround sound system. So it has 9 projectors to do video mapping, and so the resolution can reach very high to 6,000 to 6,000. And the sound can be multi-tracks, but ambisonics is highly recommended in this space. And the seating capacity is around 40 to 50 people. It could also include standing capacity from 60 to 80 people. We have diverse programs in this dome space and in different years. So you could see the max to see it combines like live illustration, VR film, and also electronic landscape, cloud computing, astronomy, and also live audio-visual performances. And we also try to work with some dance groups or performing arts group to play their programs inside this dome. We do open calls every year to also to call for artists who is interested in the projection art or any art format which they could happen in this kind of space. And this is what it looks like from outside. This is the dome project in 2021. And the material which is translucent. So from outside you could see also the projection, the light, and what it looks like from outside. But from that year, we found we only could do the projection performances and or all the programs at night. So in the following year, last year, we tried to change the material to be light proof, and which we can make our program earlier from the late afternoon. And these are some pictures of the projects happening in the dome place. Okay, and this is a dome projection combined with the dancing group, which they can also play in the dome. All right, and the other lab is Taiwan Sound Lab. This lab is, we cooperated with one organization in France. The name is YCAM. It's one center under Pompidou Center, and YCAM is Institute for Research and Coordination in Acoustic and Music. So we signed a long-term agreement with them, and they help us to build Taiwan Sound Lab. And the mission of Taiwan Sound Lab is interdiscipline, innovation, collaboration, research, education, and technology. The Sound Lab has one special audio field, and they have 49.4 sound system arrays, and which can make the sound program very immersive, and like you are experience the real sound happening in the field. And so we could use this place to do theater, and use also music programs, and also artists and creators, they make their programs and research in this field too. And we have other studio. This studio is mainly classroom. They do some educational programs, and also we work with universities in Taiwan, especially for students who are interested in music and sound creation techniques, and or combined with arts. And the other studio is it's the workstation, and which is similar to the special sound field. It has 16 speakers, and also make this small workstation with a surround sound system, so artists could make their works in these studios, and when their works are ready, they can put the works in the special audio field. For Taiwan Sound Lab, they have biennial sound festival every 2 years. So for the festival, it will have music programs which with diverse formats and diverse musical styles. Also, sometimes it will have the audio experimental programs in this festival. And these are some programs in this festival. Krama is a project inspired by the English director Direct Jaman, and it used the VR technology to simulate the world, what Jaman saw when he went blind. And there are other programs. And for the Taiwan Sound Lab, they have Wandering Sounds projects every year. This is much more small-scale project. They work with emerging artists or established artists in both ways, and they do these artists, they could use the workstations and audio sound field to make their works, and after months or 1 year, 2 years work process, they present their works after it's ready. And also, besides the creators programs, we also have creators sound off program. It's especially for the sound artist or audiovisual artist, which they could also do residency in the Taiwan Sound Lab to make their works, and also they co-work with our technical teams together and to do small-scale projects. And they also do presentations after their projects are ready. Okay, and this show what C-Lab is like. C-Lab is trying to build a cultural ecosystem from 0 to 1. 1 means like mature exhibitions, performances, or presentation we usually see in museums, galleries, or open spaces. And 0 means the other side of creation. So we situate C-Lab in the middle of 0, and but also we are developing from 0 to 1. So on the other side, 1 means exhibitions, events, and festivals. And 0 is more inner side, and 1 is more outer side. And so we do a lot of workshops, residency programs, projects, and researches, and between 0 to 1. And for inner side, it's a lot of professionals involved in it, and they do production, research and development, consultation, and also exchanges with each other, and including international exchanges. And in the middle of 0 and 1, there are some minorities of audiences. We hold open studios, like we have open studio every year in the creators program to show what they do in progress. And also sometimes we open the rehearsals and previews to the public to help them to know what's going on in C-Lab and what it looks like when you develop your works or research projects. And on the side of public side, we hold all kinds of exhibitions, different events, festivals, conferences, talks, and a lot of public programs to promote what C-Lab does. And this one shows some public programs we do. As I mentioned before, we are a big park. It's 7 hectares. So we have a responsibility to be as open as possible to the public. So we also do a lot of different public programs, like music concert in the outside space, and also we have some historical buildings in the park. So we do guided tours to the children and also adults to introduce the history and historical buildings styles, architecture, and to them. And also we have a podcast to introduce the projects happening in C-Lab, and sometimes we do creative markets and performances in the outside space of C-Lab. And there's the other video which can show a day of C-Lab. You can see all the steps, what they work on in a day. Okay, and this is where my presentation ends. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for the presentation. From here, we would like to enjoy 15 minutes break. So please come back at 5:20 Japan time. 5:20. Please be at your seat. So please enjoy your break.
はい、20分になりますので、皆さんご着席ください。
It's already 20 after 5, so please come take your seats.
はい、20分になるので、皆さんご着席ください。
So everyone, please take your seats.
はい、では今からですね。
So we would like to begin the presentation by host Fumi Hirota of CCBT. Please welcome her with a big hand. Thank you. So I'd like to talk about what we do at CCBT. Once again, I'm Hirota from Tokyo Metropolitan Foundation for History and Culture, in charge of Civic Creative Base Tokyo. So I am going to talk about CCBT's activities. A facility just opened only 4 months ago, and we have just started core programs. So we opened October 23rd last year. We had the opening event, Future Tokyo Athletic Meet. We had the event organized by Meiwa Denki Company, and we also had a camp, which is displayed today. We had meetups and workshops in the meantime. What is characteristic is art incubation program. Kihara Tomo and Playful are active in this area. We have 5 groups of artists. This is in the form of fellowship. So their work is based in our facility. So I will introduce core programs later on. As we listen to other presentations, so CCBT is really a baby. If we were a kangaroo, we were still in the pouch of the mother. And we are making this preparation and that preparation. Watershed is grown up, but we do not have any lab yet. So based on our mission, how we are going to form laboratories. And that is why we invited our predecessors, the advanced labs that we can learn from. So let me once again introduce CCBT. We have 4 missions. Tokyo Metropolitan Government and Tokyo Metropolitan Foundation for History and Culture operate this facility. Civic Creative is really the core theme, and this is the center of our activities. So our mission includes inspiration, co-creation, incubation, and network. And as we were just discussing, we had 4 core programs. We have talk events in the meetup area. In the fellowship program, we have an art incubation program. CCBT is a partner. We invite artist fellows to provide support that they need. And we have Art Tech Lab. This is a workshop designed for children. And also we have Future Ideations Camp. Was it 2 days ago? We just completed 5-day intensive Future Ideation Camp. So what we are going to do at CCBT, we have a collaboration member. Seiji Saito explained our activities in these two words. Mr. Saito gave us this name. So Civic Creative should be designed based on competencies and composability. We're not a passive side. We should be an actor. So we should be the one that actually act out the competencies. And composability meaning that we can complement each other and can share, and we want to be a platform that sharing activities. And that's what Mr. Saito said. And I believe that driver of achieving these is going to be a lab. Lab is a physical facility, but as we heard in other presentations, lab is often referred to as functions, not necessarily a physical facility. So the topic that I'd like to introduce is, first of all, Asian case studies. So this is the first time that CCBT hosts an event like this. Art Council Tokyo and Japan Foundation, together since 2016, carried out the talk events and symposiums focusing on art and technology. Based on these experiences, there are several lab case studies that I'd like to introduce. I'd like to start with a video here. This is from Yogyakarta of Indonesia at the museum. This is Indonesian Net Audio Festival. I am tense because I have my former boss here in this venue. We're providing planning, utilizing art and technology as themes. We made sure that artists were exchanged between Indonesia and Japan. As you can see from this video, in Indonesia, Southeast Asia, as you might already know, there are very active artist collectives activities. There are a lot of citizens that participate in festivals like this. Many of these collectives serve as labs for biotechnology, community study, and contemporary art. They have different characters. If you look at this festival, you will notice that this is not, it is almost impossible to categorize this in terms of the form of expression. And as I mentioned earlier, collective's competency is really the basis and foundation of their activities. And I believe that technology is utilized as a bridge. So here, technologies and internet are utilized as alternative tools for expression. And the important values are really sharing and commons. I'd like to show you another clip of video. From BioClub. We're working with Waag. This is a BioClub based in Shibuya at Waag and the Indonesian collective Life Patch. This is a joint project. Biotechnologies and art are the themes. Back in 2016, so this is about 7 years ago. The theme we chose back then was a garden. A garden in Japan is recognized as something that includes aesthetics and culture, local culture. And so it is different from English word garden, Indonesian word of garden, that is halaman. They all have different backgrounds. They're different due to differences in societal or cultural backgrounds. The loft work in Shibuya has a biolab, and I think they have a joint program with Waag. We have a participant from in Futurelab in Shibuya, a good example that I should introduce here. We heard about the activities of C-Lab earlier. The scale is far larger than I had expected. I actually invited them. I said that we are the CCBT. I wonder what they thought of us. I'm worried that they expected we were a much bigger organization. But this is the history of labs in Japan.
So this, we had the participation of Seo Hyojon, and at Gifu Ogaki, we had an Asian media art exhibition in 2006. At that time, Gunaran Nadarayan has been working as a co-curator and focusing on the cultural uniqueness of Asian media art. It might be difficult to see, but here it says the global media arts seems to have developed, but it is different from media art, what it tries to discover in media art. So one is to answer to the requirement of the time, and the other one is about the relationship with the new technology of information communication experience, and the C-Lab, CCTV, and Indonesia conditions. They all carry these two requirements, and I think you will well understand that, especially in Japan. The media art tide in the Western world came in 1980s. It was introduced in Japan very early, so we were impacted by the Western area. However, we were able to grow in the line of the times of the globalization and the global requirement. Currently, the condition is so changed. In 2010 or after 2010, the post-globalism came, and after that, Japan had to be responding to the Great East Japan earthquake, and technology has been developing, and people started to have different societal value, which has been changing our way. And along with that, according to the technology, the digital fabrication, the so-called the third digital revolution came over. So the art and technology tied in Asia, in Japan, started to move in various directions. So during these changes, the CCTV has opened in October 2022. So with us, we have two ways of direction, and thinking about taking balance of the two directions, we have to be carefully operating and maneuvering ourselves. The core program that we just shared with you. It is important to involve the stakeholders, various stakeholders, and I think the keyword lab is there to indicate that we are a core or a hub to increase the competency of people. The other day, we have been enjoying the lecture of Golan Levin, the artist and educator. There was a Q&A, and this was what Levin-san mentioned. So that was really impressive, and it's a key word for what we are doing right now in Japan. He said this. Well, the participant wanted to question him, what should participant do in order to create a new society in Japan? And Mr. Levin said that Japan has a long-standing history of expressioning art already. And there's already the activity. Already a great artist has been emerged and community has been generated. Therefore, he says there's no room for any advices. However, looking from Japan's history, he believes that there could be new development in Japan. So in Japan, when we talk about community focusing on art and technology, and collective activity, we can come back in retrospect to come back to 1966. We say that 1951 was the real starting point, the Jikken Kobo. And then in 1991, the Canon Artist Lab, 1991 to 2001, there was Canon Art Lab. And in 2003, YCAM Interlab has been started to become a great hub. And this is the very first public facility created in Japan around 2009. It has not realized that because of some budget or issue. And in Japan, there are several trends in order to be creating these projects. And after 2022, by the pandemic, the communication information technology is now called out loudly that it should be leveraged, and it is also a great key focal area for the government too. And CCBT has been created at a very different point in time. In terms of art and technology, people have been focusing on lab. But what is lab for CCBT? We would like to refer to various examples, and we have to be defining it in multiple layers. And CCTV will be focusing on the next challenges. In order to do that, we have to be redesigning our lab too. After me, Suganuma-san of YCAM is going to be introducing YCAM. YCAM is a place where I used to be working. However, now it is totally different. And this is a place where it is continuously evolving itself in order to answer to the two different requirements. And what it makes it happen at YCAM is the existence of its lab. Right now, this is what we are thinking. The CCBT mission is there, but other than that, I want to think about facility and function, although we don't have a facility itself yet. So it is just within our scheme and plan. So I would like you to please feed us back your feedback. So if you would be seeing a lab in CCBT, what kind of a lab would you like to see of us? So I ask you of your opinion. And with that, I would like to close. And now let us call Suganuma-san for introducing YCAM. Thank you very much. So their staffs are controlling the theatric area. And I wanted to understand what they were doing. So they have been bringing up a 360-degree camera in order to learn from you. I think this person is going to be feeding back his feedback. So we only have 10 minutes for YCAM information. And for the talks, I was writing an article within the past, which was featuring on labs. And that article has been inspiring Ms. Hirota. That is why I was invited here today at CCBT meetup. And now I am having great fun following everybody's talk. So I will be quick in introducing ourselves. Maybe you might all know about YCAM. We are from Yamaguchi. We are Yamaguchi Center for Arts and Media. We are located at the Yamaguchi Prefecture, the very western area of the tip of the main island of Japan. And we are very near with the Asian countries. And Yamaguchi City, the capital of the prefecture, there's 200,000 people, residents. And ourselves, we have been open in 2003. And as the name shows, media art, media technology is the majority of what we are thinking about. So that is our topic that we work on. In the late 1990s, the information environment worldwide has been focusing on media art and information. So that concept has been behind the creation of us. This is our infrastructure. We have foyer that's having 100 seats and studio. We do some exhibition at the foyer too. And we have another studio which is not shown here. This is called Studio B, a slightly smaller studio. And we have a library. And we have a lab inside. It's not a lab in effect, but the staffs come by and staff wants to have a desk where they would like to work for. So wherever they place their technology or some machines, those area becomes their studio. The biolab has been established in 2015. And it used to be a place where we had meetings or where we had some children come over to stay with us. But now it has become a studio for the biolab. And YCAM is mainly focusing on the discovery technology and also think about art creation, education, and community. So we're unlike university, but we're a public infrastructure which works on technology and education, art creation, and community. And another important thing is about our staff, YCAM Inter Lab. This is not about the location. This is the name of the people, the group of people. We have around 20 people, and they all have different backgrounds. They come from design or programmer, engineers or designer, or a theatrical background, or some audio engineer. And there's curator teams as well. Curator, art curator, or publisher, or cinema curator, and there's educator too, with regard to education. And there's people working for publicity and archivists who work for archiving. There are some people working for biotechnology, but first they came for working for the lightings with us. Technical area and special talents were held by 20 people, and other 20 people are working for office work. Some people come from the Yamaguchi prefectural local government too. So they are seconded from the local government. So we mainly work on media art. This is 2004 creation. The art piece name is Gravy Cells, 1 year after our opening. I will not go into details, but we create art and we send out information to the world. So we say that the art is created in Yamaguchi. The way we create is all totally different. Basically, by the production of the artist or curator will stay at Yamaguchi City and to coordinate gradually with YCAM studio. The people always ask us, do you have residency at YCAM? We don't have an official residency. So we have almost like a house where people can stay, but that's not an official residency. Usually artists, if they are located in Tokyo, they frequent us and stay around 1 week, 2 weeks in Yamaguchi, try out something, experiment, and go back to Tokyo. That is what usually happens. So we do create various pieces. This is performing arts and theatrical arts, and some bodily performance is what we also think as a possibility in extension with media arts. We have music project as well, not in usual live, but it's a human DJ battled by AI DJ, and that's a co-development. Regarding education, it's an original workshop and experience type focusing on media literacy. We created with like a package. it's not a word type or a book type of education. So students going through that will have to experience by moving their body. So tactile feeling is also included. For instance, right hand, children are trying to create a big, huge board by sending out some focal views. Or else on the left-hand side, the children are trying to react to music and audio sound. Searching or tactile feeling is also included within the workshop education. Likewise, as our art piece, all these are going to make tours around the world. And we create media park as well. This is called Korogaru Park, which we have been working in Yamaguchi in various parts. We have various versions. Here, this is a place where artists exhibit, but this is also an area for children to play around. In the past, there were 350 more media art created at YCAM and education program included. These also make tours, and the number of tours count already 200 or more. And this information has stopped at the point of 2019. I have to confirm, but we have more tours than that. The art is touring around the world, visiting various areas, and the art has the name brand of YCAM and Yamaguchi City. So that is how we contribute to the local area. And during our activity, the YCAM Interlab function has been expanding. First, we started as artist support, and the technology of issues has been expanded. And then people are accumulating knowledges. So the people itself becomes like a hub to connect people and people. Left-hand side, this is a motion capture tool for a dancer, but right-hand side person has a paralysis, infantile paralysis. And when this motion capture has been handled by this paralyzed person, now the personalized research started.
This is Contact Gonzo performance group. We collaborated with us. This is the automatic sensing camera. It's a fun hacking. They go up in the mountain and try to capture an animal. It's actually open source in half jokingly, and the grammar school student actually changed this into a new, completely different equipment, completely different purpose. And this has happened in many different ways. This is YCAM via research. We carried out research. We also conducted workshops. They pick leaves. They don't know what the plant name is, so they extracted DNA from a leaf. You see, these are all grammar school children, the fourth graders. And then eventually they were able to come up with this result. This is a picture book, DNA extraction. They did on their own, and they actually used barcoding to analyze the name of the plant, and they identified this specific plant. This was done back in 2016, and in 2021, we decided to apply this to school. And Yamaguchi City Education Board became interested in this. We have a similar tool. This is 360 degrees picture book for children. They use this tablet. So school teacher were having a hard time to find good content. So we collaborated to create content in a web note. They were able to actually input information. They can actually disseminate that information across the world through internet. There is another example. This is sports hackathon program. We've conducted this many times. This is really YCAM-like event. We've created our tools and arts. All of these can be utilized in this athletic meeting where citizens can participate. And they came up with a new sport. And on the third day, we organized a hackathon. This is a large-scale sport event, and they have a new sport they've created. And this is also created by participants. This is a new game that they came up with. You see there is a conversion. This is really, really exciting. They use very plain technology. You see that sensor there in the smartphone right in the center. That's all they need for this game. This can also be applied to school education. So it actually expands in many ways. So my summary. Media art creation is a way to collaborate, and we can actually open source the result of our activities. Technology is there. It is changeable. It can be applied to many different areas depending on who uses or who looks at it. Technology can be utilized in completely different ways. So this is a cycle that you never will be able to anticipate. So this is a cycle of an unanticipated creation. So I think this is a system that arranges this meeting. When society changes rapidly, we need a platform like this. This is what YCAM does in a local community. Of course, there is no single answer for a lab. There are many different forms of labs that are possible. And we have explored many different possibilities, and we came up with this lab. Thank you. So I should continue on here. So let's now move into the panel discussion. So I'd like to invite our panelists to come forward. So the title of this event, Hello Labs, is a very good title. So all of you talked about labs as systems, lab as physical facilities. There are many different aspects to a lab. It's been quite interesting to me. So we are going to have a cross-discussion so that we can enhance resolution on the lab. The audience, many of you in this audience, you may have explored the possibility of a lab, maybe creating a lab in your company or on the street. You may have different specific ideas. So we want to talk about many different forms of labs here in this discussion session. So after this discussion, there will be 15-minute question and answer session. So save your questions till then. Think about what you want to ask. So first of all, our host, CCBT. This is a new space that was just born, as you explained. But after listening to other presentations, what was your overall impression? I have to face this reality. How many of you, how you are operating your lab? So what's the size of the facility? It's a realistic question. So the number of staffs, what is the scale, the size? C lab is at 50 people and 7 hectares.
Not just 20-ish, and now it's the 6th year, so yeah, it's developing to 50 people.
YCAM と同規模っていう感じ。
Similar size to YCAM, I believe. We want to ask in-depth questions later on, but I want to talk on a high level. So this is about the sustainability of activities. So timeline of the activities. Early on, Hirota-san showed us the Watershed started 41 years ago. So it's a big adult, big kangaroo. So I think this is the order of the how long it existed. The oldest watershed, and YCAM is in the middle. But as you continued on with your activity, there are things that change and things that do not change. The functions that should stay the same, function that should change. The Watershed and Waag, you have looked at different things that need to change, that need to stay. So funding, how you respond to society, there are different ways to try to change. So do you want to make a comment on this aspect that changes and aspect that does not change?
I don't know whether I'm absolutely horrified or delighted to be the old kangaroo, but I'm going to go with that. I don't think I've ever been called the grown-up before, but yeah, I mean, Watershed is a place of change. We really embrace change, and for us, change is what keeps us. Curiosity, I guess, is what keeps us interested and changing and relevant. Because if you're not changing, then you're not relevant to the world around you. I guess the Pervasive Media Studio, which is not quite the old kangaroo. So the studio is 15 years old, and that was created because the work of Watershed was so project-based. So we used to create projects, and then when the money ran out, all the artists would dissipate, and what we wanted to do was create a permanent home in our home for artists and technologies. So that's been really important. I guess some of the things that have changed most fundamentally for us in the last 3 years, partly through COVID and partly through global movements like Black Lives Matter and understanding climate change a bit more, is around inclusion. When I started Pervasive Media Studio, I said, we'll be open and generous. Anyone can work here. Everyone is welcome. But of course, not everyone is welcome because our labs and our spaces are encoded in certain ways, and people have to feel like they need to know certain things. So the last 3 years for us has been about dismantling lots of our founding principles to make sure that that everybody does feel welcome, and that we're bending and changing and responding to people as they come in. And that's really important, because art tech labs around the world have been pretty closed and sometimes quite cold places. And what I loved about listening to all of us was what sat at the beating hearts of our presentations was care and concern for the world, for civic responsibility. And I feel that's an exciting time now in the collective remaking of labs.
Yeah, if I may, I was very impressed by the way you are changing your system of hiring people, talking about a very multicultural society in the Netherlands. It was really an exercise for us to change in that manner. and we are becoming a more diverse group of collaborators within the organization itself, and also with the organizations we collaborate with. But we have not systematized that as much as you do. I work together with FACT in Liverpool. I think England is much more ahead in Europe than any other country, so we can learn a lot from that. We did the most damage, like we should do. All right. But I had to learn a lot there. Oh yeah, but I'm also getting it in my own ear then. So anyway, Waag also changed a lot in its way of working. We are currently also about 50 people on salary, but we also work with a lot of freelancers, a lot of artists around us. And what I think is also fantastic is that we have a greater number of European collaborations going on. That is at the same time very difficult, but it also forces you to collaborate with all these other countries that you have your preoccupations with, your prejudices, but forcing to collaborate learns you a lot. We moved from being or naming ourselves the Society for Old and New Media, then we moved in the Waag building. We became the Institute for Art, Science and Technology. Where was the society? The society came in later. So moving from indeed being very technology focused to concern and care focused also happened with the way we worked with artists. So I think within a lot of our programs, we've proven enough that it is very important to work and experiment and wonder with artists. But having that proven, it is important to tweak that type of agenda into working with artists in a certain matter of concern, be it climate change, be it unequal division of economic means in society, etc. That is changing into a much more coherent program. I think that's important that we do that.
Thank you very much for the comment. And Ms. Yu-Ching. So C-Lab was created in 2018, also new, and to be born and be continuing your work and be changing yourselves, I think that's also going to happen to you. So are there any challenges with you so far?
Yes, I think we are still in the changing process because I'm thinking we are a new lab and now CCBT is born and newer than us. And I think in the beginning we are spending a lot of time to situate ourselves in the lab world. What kind of lab we are developing? Do we want Fat Lab or Bio Lab or all kinds of labs? So we do a lot of researchers and project-based programs to for the purpose to think clearly who we are. But I think most challenging part is it's the lucky part, but also the challenging part is we are sponsored by our Ministry of Culture. So for the government, they have their responsibility to make the whole big area, big park of C-Lab to be as open as possible to the public. So through all these years, I think we are more, we focus more on the technology-based programs, especially to combine technology with art creation. So through my presentation, you could see a lot of technology-based lab developing, like the sound lab and also the future vision lab. So actually it's two directions. It's both, one is audio and one is visual. So we try to focus on that a bit, but also we are expanding ourselves for more directions. Like there is an animation base in C-Lab right now. It's like incubation for animation industries. So it also open codes for the animation industries or creators to come to join us and to have a residency office in C-Lab. And also for our foundation, because we have around 50 people, but they are not all working for the labs we mentioned in the presentation. They also work for the animation base, and also for our foundation, the ministry asked us to also manage two creative cultural parks, not in Taipei. One is in the east side of Taiwan, Hualien, and the other one will come to join us this year. It's in around the South Taiwan. So we also make more public programs because the cultural creative park it's not very lab oriented. It's more for people. So more public programs and also those parks are. Mainly do the space rental, so more people to come to join us to work on different parts in C-Lab now.
はい、ありがとうございます。広田さんどうですか CCBT の。
Thank you. So what about you, Hirota-san, from the position of CCBT? So listening to Ms. Yu-Ching, you're talking not about the arts. You are working in order to use the technology and have it used in the citizenships. So from Tokyo, we learned a lot from Taiwan, including what you did during the COVID era. When I looked through the website of C-Lab, I was so excited. And you're saying that you're expanding even more, and you're trying to create culture, and that's surprising. So within the next few years, CCBT will like to transform ourselves like that and try to find something to increase what we can do. So you're my senior. Thank you very much. So I would like to step into a more detailed question. I myself work in YCAM lab, and the space in YCAM or facility or any working tools in YCAM, I believe that it's very important to understand what scale of projects we are working on, with which tools, which space. That's very important to understand. So my question is, are you satisfied with your scale of lab that you have currently, or would you like to expand even more? Maybe it could be referred to the number of people too. If you have more people working for you, are you going to be eroding with too much people, or would you like to expand in terms of number? Ms. Clare, please.
I have 110 people that work for me, and I would not like any more. Thanks very much. Yeah, so we've always tried. So we have no tools in Pervasive Media Studio. We're not that sort of technology lab. Mostly we're experience design. And so if people need specialist tools, then we arrange a collaboration with the people who've got it. And for that, that's really important for us, because the work comes in and it finds its home in the most appropriate place for that work, because otherwise we'd be saying, please put this in our gallery, please put this in our theatre, and we'd be programming selfishly, I think. So we have to work with an artist, find the work and where it will resonate and help it move out in the world. So saying that, I don't know how the economics of culture is everywhere else, but in the UK, it's very, very difficult. Public funding is not moving. Our audiences are maybe 80% back from COVID, but not fully. The cost of everything has just gone up through the roof. Like the cost of electricity in the UK is costing me like an extra £10,000 a month for our utilities bills. So there is an answer that the expansion may help our economic model. I don't love it. I don't love the capitalist sort of, we grow to survive, but we will have to do something. We are, I think, about to open a very tiny immersive gallery, and only because artists have begged us to, because they want to show their work alongside our other types of programs.
Lucas.
Lucas.
Same here. We don't want to grow per se so much. What our challenge is to create the right form of impact where we use the results of our research and to make that public and also publicly inclusive, to work more with the public. And what I didn't do so much in my presentations was talk about our public program. We call it Expeditions, where we invite an audience into that research, into the Urban Ecology Lab, into the BioLab with hands-on learning during evenings that we organize called Waag Open, etc. So for us, that is the real challenge. We have a lot of also conceptual labs. These are in part labs that have the technology. So we have a very basic biolab that has some equipment. But when we work with artists that feed our research agenda, we often need to also involve universities or other labs, etc. I didn't say so much about the other work of Spela Petric, that is taking our audiences to high-tech environments like greenhouses, like surgery rooms, like zoos, because in zoos there's a lot more that happens than only the animals that you see behind bars or behind glass. They are all bred. So these are highly industrialized, highly technological spaces. That is very interesting that an audience is brought there. So also with the Space Lab, there we also work with experts outside of our own lab. So we are not about expanding, but we try to create more impact with the research that we conduct there.
I think we are a bit similar because regarding expanding, I think it's very related to the budget and the space. Yeah, for C-Lab, although everybody could see we are a big field, but actually we have very limited buildings we could use because some of them are already historic buildings, and if you do events or exhibitions there, you couldn't renovate or do any changes. And also, for now, we are trying to renovate some old buildings because you could not use them. They have safety issues. So actually, in the whole field, we could only use around maybe 6 to 7 buildings around. So space is a problem. And the other difficulty is budget, because I think when our government would like to invest in a lab, we try to expand a lot and also think about what we could do. But years by years, and also affected by the pandemic. So the government, they invest less and less, so the budget doesn't allow us to expand. So that's why we need to choose the focus we would like to invest in. So this is the other problem we have. But we try to expand remotely, like our strategy is, since we have also run the cultural creative park and also animation base, so we try to help all the artists and the creators to work together to help different fields to have chances to exchange ideas with each other, or go further to maybe co-create each other. And also we travel our programs to Hualien, to the south part of Taiwan. So we try to expand remotely. I think that's our strategy. Yeah.
いかがですか?
Hirota-san. Earlier, Lucas said that you're trying to find collaborators outside the facilities, the counterparts, I believe. By finding more partners, there will be more citizens involved. YCAM, for example, you would start with inside, but for us, it's not just CCBT. We want to work with other external entities like universities, and we can say that collaboration, a lab. So it's a good idea that I learned from Lucas. Exactly as Lucas said in his presentation, it's the public, civil, and private. There are 3 platforms, stacks, which I think was a great idea. If you are designing project based on that, make sure that all the relevant stakeholders are included. I think it's a great idea. That's something that we have never done well. For example, we lack the balance of collaboration with private companies, for example. So, Lucas, would you like to add any comment on what I just said?
Yes, that's quite a difficult area because if you have this ambition, you really are bringing yourself into an arena where you have a lot of change to make. So we are a messenger there, and on a very small scale with projects like Fairphone and Gene Consent and a lot of other small projects, we are making a start. But I think it is also important to make sure that we collaborate with other organizations on that. It's interesting to see that our maker culture is reaching a level of maturity where we are touching on also issues that the industry has to deal with, and the industry starts to become more and more interested in what we do. I think that is a message that not only Waag, but also YCAM and CCCB and all our sorts of institutions need to spread more, not only to these stakeholders, but also strengthen among ourselves, because I think it's an agenda that we need to push also by making more collaborations between ourselves in order to show society that there is traction, that there is something to gain for other partners than just us asking money from our governments.
I was also just going to think a little bit about that. All too often in the worlds that we operate in, a funding bid comes up and people say like, oh, shall we work together? Like, let's put it in, and it's like you've got 3 days and you do something. And actually, so the opposite of having the equipment outside of our lab, we have the people inside. So trust is what we need to build. So we have professors and university researchers and corporate researchers researchers with full-time desks in the studio, co-locating with artists, with people from the community. And over time, they build trust and shared interest and new ways of working. And then when those funding bids come up, there's sort of really deep, interesting, appropriate work that you can go with. So I think collaboration is good, but it takes effort, like it's an active thing and it needs managing and producing.
ありがとうございます。ちょっとそれに
Thank you. In relation to that, so think of a middle-scale lab. You need head counts. You need to make sure you have sufficient budget to run a lab. As Claire mentioned today, I think it is important. Having sufficient funding, there are always limitations. That could also include accountability. I think it is a matter of how you assess yourself. There is something that you are asked of. You are asked to do something, and you're trying to meet up with that expectation. But what we are doing, it can be experiment. We are creating new values that have never existed in the society. It's very hard to evaluate what we are doing. So this is another question to Claire. What do you think of this?
I don't know if I'm going to answer your question, but I'm going to talk about a new thing that we've just done, which I think speaks to some of the strains and challenges around money and also responsibility. So this year, we've just moved our artist and residency program. So we do a funded artist and residency program to random selection. And so one of the things that we looked at when we looked at the data in our systems was the unpaid labor of artists within our ecology was huge. The amount of time that artists are putting into applications versus how much money we're actually giving out is kind of embarrassing. And so we decided that we would turn that system on their head and use a 5-minute form. So each artist could just put the title of the work that they wanted to do. And we would literally we drew 12 artists out of like a lottery machine. And then we met with them. We paid each of those artists to think through their idea better. And then we met with them and then we selected them. And it was pretty controversial with some artists, like the death of curation, the end of the expert, what will happen? But so the time of day that people applied has really changed because artists are also putting their applications in at like 4 a.m. because they're trying to balance other work with trying to get money, with trying to do stuff. So the number of unsociable hours applications went down, the number of free labor went down, like the whole system becomes fairer. And I guess that's a thing for us to think about. Yes, money is hard, but I'm also publicly funded. And I have a bar and other ways of making money. So we have a responsibility to think about equity in the system and to change our systems again, I think.
Yeah, giving the artists we work with a fair pay is also something that is, for me, a great concern. However, we don't have a business model of ticket sales, etc. So when we work with Tomo, we give Tomo a lot of time to negotiate the right price, which is the same salary as the people that work with us. So, and I think that is important. I see you nod. Don't do that if that's not the case, but I try to at least pay the artists we work with that same salary, so to get rid of that. But I think we should do more there because artists working as freelancers are in much more precarious situations than we are on the payroll. So that is also a concern. I don't know whether that is an answer to your question, but yeah, that is also a concern. Can be louder, that applause. For you artists.
would like to respond to the assessment a bit. Yeah, I think assessment is a difficulty part because for the labs, I think all our curators and all our partners and our team, we think what we do are very important, and we do a lot of interesting and innovating projects. And also, we also do exhibition about biology, art, and or about the important issues in the society. But how could we prove to our public funding, our funders, that the things we do is important? It's difficult to prove that because for the founder or the government, they always ask KPI. So they ask how many people for one workshop, how many people join this workshop? Because for workshop, you know, if you want to work very closely with each other and to have really good ideas to born from that, the people won't be a lot. So maybe 20 or maximum, I think maybe 30. So the KPI is not enough for the founder. So I think we are always thinking about if there is a new assessment way to value our works. And one thing, I think for the partnership, it's the one thing our founder or government will think that's important. That's why I'm coming to join this program, because if you have as more partners in the world, although, as Clare said, you need more time to manage and produce with them. It's more time spending always on the cooperation with other partners. But that's one way to prove to the government the thing you are doing is important, because you are more partners with you or work together and on the projects you think which is important. Yeah.
Can I add something? Can I add something to that? Well, due to the COVID pandemic, and we are fully a project organization with no ticket sales again, we had to have it was needed to have more conversation with our funders, which is the municipality, but also the central government, about impact. And we are really diversifying that because you cannot only talk about numbers, you also have to talk about qualitative impact on citizens that are in your programs as participants, but also on how long do they stay in those citizen sensing projects. Also, the fact that we produce research makes us that we have a publication output, and these are also brought into that equation. So I think it's important to be in conversation with your funders to diversify this idea of what impact is and how you can produce that, because there's many more ways than just audience numbers.
Anything from you, Hirota-san? So the CCBT itself is coming from Tokyo Metropolitan Foundation, and we're under the same founder. So there's a museum, and the CCBT was created underneath. And when we were formed, we had a discussion about the evaluation. It's totally different from how we should be evaluating ourselves. We don't have any profit. We don't have numbers of people visiting us. We don't have the indicator to see our performance, but we need performance or indicator. But let's say workshops. If we think about workshop, and if this is a welding workshop, we can't have 100 people welding for programs. So what we can see is that maybe create an open source to share what we have done through the project. That's one way of evaluating ourselves.
one of the reasons that the 3 horizons model that I showed is speaks to us so powerfully is because it is about understanding ecologies. So what is the health of the ecology rather than the individual key performance indicators? And Horizon 1 and Horizon 2 and Horizon 3 are all necessary. We're not trying to rub out Horizon 1 or to only pull up Horizon 3. And I think for us to understand those KPIs that we believe in, we call them, we have to think about how we have to work with our funders to think through those holistic systems ways of understanding, because the impact of CCBT will not be really known for 5 years or 10 years, because this is the kind of work that we're doing. I don't know if there are any funders in the room, but please work with us on long-term ecological understanding of impact.
ありがとうございます。ちょっと40
So we have time until 45, and then we're switching to Q&A session. Regarding community or network, I would like to ask some questions. So everybody had their presentation about the local community. You say that you're an actor within the community and you have the global networks too. So organically, these networks are moving, but for the sake of organic moving of the network, I would like you to just share with us what you are intending to do or what you are doing. Starting from Ms. Clare, please.
I'm not completely sure I understand the question.
何ですかね。
So you are a member of the local community, but you're connected to the global community. So you have 2 ties, 2 connections. And it's not easy to be connected on both sides. In order to be connected, what do you need? What do you do to make sure that you're connected to the local community and the global community?
Thank you. Yes. Well, I think being porous is really important for your local community. So every Friday we have open studio. So absolutely anybody can come and join the Pervasive Media Studio and become a resident for the day, which means that we've always got this like new talent, people who we've never met, people coming through. Obviously, the work that you do with young people as well is the way to reach back in and find that and to start those journeys through stuff and to co-design with people what they need, I think is really important. We've just stopped all our young people's programs and we are in the middle of a huge piece of consultation around what do the young people want from us, how will we be most meaningful as other types of organizations arise who can help them with some of the things that we have traditionally done. Sometimes I think to do good community you have to get out the way because new things are springing up, and if you're the old kangaroo who's stood in the road not letting new things happen, that's not so great either. In terms of international collaboration, I also think it's about trust and time. One of the great things that happened to us in COVID was we just hung out more with the people that we work with in other countries, like Zoom hangouts, and we talked to each other about what we were interested in, and rather than thinking about those projects or those funding bids, we just kind of swapped ideas. And you know, I don't know if you know that Colston statue, who's a famous slave trader in Bristol, was torn down during that time and at the beginning of Black Lives Matter, and it was a really interesting and troubling time in our city. And we had fascinating and brilliant and useful conversations with artists in Durban and Lagos who have other really similar experiences of statues and slavery and things that have happened in that context. So I think, again, like investing in both of those things is really important. The community that we have here that has grown over years. I don't know what year it was I first came to YCAM. like an extremely long time ago, and I come back here and I see friendly faces and people we've met before, and the trust is there to be able to do both. But our citizens want us to be globally connected. It's good for them, like they can walk into Watershed and know that they're part of a global community, and that makes them proud and excited and up for what's next. And so then that's good for us too.
Well, I can say about Waag that we are also in a transition where we are looking at our past public program and trying to look at our entire public more as participants. That's what we've done so far also, but not explicitly. So we have done festivals, we have done a lot of conferences for a local community of artists or experts in a certain field, which we will go on to do. But I think it is for us very important to remain on that agenda, how we can bind the local community of citizens to us. If you want to involve them in all sorts of citizen sensing projects, the essence is to keep them do that and to keep them motivated and to make that agenda their own. So that is a transition we are thinking about for our local community. Internationally, we are collaborating through a lot of European funded programs, which is also a lot of hard work because you have to write these funding applications that, similar to artists, is more or less unpaid work. And I can tell you, writing a funding application for the European Commission takes a team of about 5 to sometimes 20 people working night after night after night, and then your success rate is very low. But still, if you get it granted, then you can be very grateful to the European Commission. They monitor well. I have to give them compliments, yes. Because it really brings you into that collaborative mode. You have to work with other cultural institutions, smaller and big, with businesses, with universities. And I think that type of collaboration funded through the Horizon program of the European Commission is very important. Aside from that, it also has the cultural program that is much more free. There's also a lot of competition there. So we combine the two, where I think the cultural program allows us much more experiment that we then bring into our Horizon innovation collaborations that are also sponsored there. So that is really making us, at least in Europe, collaborate with all the member states and a couple of states beyond that that are selected by the European Commission as important areas.
Yeah, for the public programs, I think that's quite. I think I want to separate its art communities and people are out of art communities. For the art community, I think we do. That's why we do a lot of open calls for our project. We have a creators program, and also for the Taiwan Sound Lab and also the Future Vision Lab, both of them we do open calls to calls for artists or students who are interested to work with us or to create something with our staff together. So I think open call is a way. And also we also have open studios, and for our performances, festivals, exhibitions, we do a lot of public programs, a lot of talks, a lot of workshops to discuss about the theme of that event is. And but for the community, out of the art communities, for those people, because we are in the central Taipei, a lot of residents surrounded. So they are not especially interested in arts or technology. So we are trying to make some public programs, try to engage them. So we do like outdoor music events and guided tours. And also we have ever done outdoor film broadcasting for our neighbors. And also we also do one singing event with the community together in our sound lab to make them to realize how their singing will be presented, will be like in our sound lab. It's very different from outside of the lab. So, and for the international connections, we are working hard to make a long-term relationship. Like we have cooperated with Asia Art Center in Korea for a long time, and also for the YCAM from France. Yeah, so I think long-term relationship could build the trust we need. So that's what we've done for now.
So Hirota-san, please. CCBT, we've just started. So rather than a program that shows something, I think it is more important to make something if you want to enhance networking. That's something that I learned for the past 4 years. So creation, making something is really a good way of creating a network. Another thing that I was surprised for the past 4 months is since we are located in Tokyo, friends of Tomogihara, all of them would come. And we have to make sure that we have this welcoming environment to anybody who would like to come visit. It's different from when you are in Yamaguchi. We are really, really busy here. We have lots of people coming here. And in terms of global networking, I think this is a promising area for us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I am mindful about the time. Maybe we would like to open the floor for questions. If there should be any questions, please raise your hand. And please indicate who your question is going to be for. Thank you. We see a hand. So you can be. So I think we can be speaking very candidly. Well, thank you very much for your presentation. Your activity was so fantastic. However, there are some difficulties. And I would like to know, despite your difficulties, why are you ongoing with your activities? So I will take that for improving the citizenship participation. I think Waag is going to be working in order to improve the understanding of the participants, and I think Waag is there for that. But if you do have any comment, Mr. Lucas, please.
Yeah, difficulties, I would say challenges. And I'm curious about what specific difficulties you are pointing at. But it is a challenge to reach out to citizens and to work with them in a manner that they are not just data collectors, but also create more agency for themselves to work with the technologies that do citizen sensing, that do measure the health of their environments. I think we can not only talk about difficulties or challenges. I think the citizens group around the steel mills close to Amsterdam haven't so far been successful, that the citizens living around that area have been gathering and raising their voice for the pollution that is unregistered in that area, that is also unregistered by the health institutions in the Netherlands. But thanks to this project and to the raising of those voices of the citizens around it, there's change happening, and the steel mill is now considering to really innovate from a coal steel mill to a hydrogen steel mill, which would be a novelty in Europe, I think. And that is, yeah, because of citizens' advocacy, also helped by the people that were doing air quality measurements around the area. Does this answer your question? It remains difficult to keep citizens related to ecological, to those issues if there is not a really pressing issue. It's interesting, we have a nitrogen crisis in the Netherlands because we have so many pig farming, cow farming, dairy farming that also all works with food for the animals coming from outside of the country itself. And their excretions make sure that there is a lot of nitrogen access and nitrogen deposition. But it's so hard to be felt by all the people living in those areas, even by measurements. So there needs to be really a pressing issue there. And that's what we're also trying to look for in order to enable those citizens to be empowered by measurement technologies that they choose to build themselves.
Thank you. Thank you very much on that. Any other question, please?
Yes, no.
Thank you. We see a hand up from Matsura-san. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. So the art cultural related facility is in the core of your practice. And when you're going to be handling the topic around the surrounding area, the edge part, the marginal part, how are you going to be working? That's my concern. According to my experience, important topics are not well known to all the people, or sometimes it could be seemingly dull to many people. So how are you going to be making adjustment to maybe try to guide people to be open to other topics? Yu-Ching-san, can you answer to that?
I think, like I mentioned before, we've done a lot of exhibition to handle the important topics in the world or in Taiwan. So I think the way to communicate with people, we try to curate our exhibitions to invite works which is people could get to understand easily. And also the work, it also has its art value. So it's about how you define your exhibition, explain your exhibition, and present your exhibition. And in a similar way in events. I think we spend some time to try to make like marketing or a strategy to do the events as easy as possible to help all the audience or people to be interested in it or to understand what the topic is about. Yeah, but sometimes it's difficult. Like if you do biology art event, I think people who are interested are still the minority, so it's not easily to engage the big audience. Yeah.
I mean, I don't worry about audiences myself. I feel like audiences are curious, like adventurous. They're kind of pissed off with being talked down to by rich men called Tom in the UK. Like the diversity of who makes art, I think, speaks to this. So if people, citizens see people who look like them or who come from backgrounds like them making work, no matter how complex it is, I think it resonates. And so partly that is about this this route to inclusion and gatekeepers and trying to democratize who is making art, but also making people collaborators in that work and proper collaborators. We have a lot of extractive community art practices where we pretend that we're asking communities to engage with stuff, but really it's sort of rubbish marketing, or we're not sort of valuing their research alongside the research of others. So proper, engaged, long and trusted relationships. I think communities are then as turned on and excited and adventurous and questioning and critical as others. It's just about making that space.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to ask you how to build relations with large enterprises. Is it coming from the top? Is that the government policy? I think it depends on the national policy. If it's in Europe, it's not a good idea to have one single monopolizing company. So since you are running a lab in the public sector, I wonder if this is going to work, whether it's going to work in Japan. So I would like to know how you're running your hub, having this arm's length distance with the large companies.
When we set up Watershed's pervasive media studio, it was done with money from Hewlett-Packard, and then they pulled out of the UK in labs, and that was a really good thing for us, because I think now we're asking questions around appropriateness and ethics and inclusion in tech, and that doesn't sit very happily with very close corporate relationships with technology companies. And there's quite a lot of people that we wouldn't take money from. We also pretty much refuse to get involved in NFT projects because we think they're unregulated financial instruments and that art is bringing people into markets that they don't know how to engage with. And corporates don't love that. They really want you to be like involved in all the shiny, the new stuff. But when you started your question, I thought you said, do you meet corporates down the pub? And I was like, oh yeah, I do. That is what I do. So actually what we do is we make relationships with people. So loads of the people who like work for tech companies come and spend time with us. They lend us equipment. They sometimes give us money, but generally they're there as people and equals. And we try not to do large branded relationships with them.
I meet corporates in the park where there is a seafood festival going on here. I met the guy who introduced Uber into Japan that wasn't here since recently. I had a very interesting discussion with him. Now, we are not funded by companies, but we collaborate with companies in their innovation questions. So through European collaboration, we worked, for instance, with Schindler's elevation systems that make smart buildings and also use robots in their manufacturing practices. And they have an inclusion and diversity counselor working at the company that really has a lot of questions about how to make humanoid robots. in such a manner that they are not a psychological hurdle for people to collaborate with. So how do you make these environments going? So working with companies is something we do in research. And further, our funding stream is pretty diverse, coming from research from the European Commission, coming from the cultural funding from the European Commission, but also from the national government, the local government, and sometimes also assignments. And our input or our throughput, therefore, is also very diverse. So, yeah. I hope this answers your question.
はい、ありがとうございます。
Thank you. So there are other questions. Any other question? There was a gentleman who raised a hand.
Yeah.
Can you ask the audience, like, are people here artists, creatives?
Sure,
I would
sure.
love to know who's here.
Sure.
Well, put your hands up if you're an artist. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, like a creative. More? Policy making? Funding? What do you do to be here on a Saturday afternoon? It's very polite here. Thank you very much. Please come and tell me afterwards what you do.
資金系の人がいなかったです。資金系の人。
Nobody from the funding organization. Please go ahead. I'd like to ask a question in Japanese.
I loved in your slides where you mentioned the role of Watershed was to also decomposite projects in order to start a new one. And I was wondering, like, if you could tell us more about the role of decompositing, because I think that's really crucial when this technology, especially on like AI and all the stuff, is like advancing rapidly, and it's always like easier to start new things rather than to end things. So I wanted to hear like why use the word decomposite?
It was
Yeah.
composting, but that's
Okay.
that's sort of the same thing. Yeah. It's and it's a fairly new mod. Sorry, do you need to redo the question? Did you all get it?
No.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. The two-loop system is a fairly new model that I found that I resonated with, and I guess there's a couple of things. So if you look back 15 years ago at the work that was happening in the Pervasive Media Studio when we started it, that work really is now only possible in a large public setting. All of the located media projects and the stuff that we were doing when you used to have a backpack and a like GPS on your head, and you were like doing R&D around this stuff. And so some of it I think is about taking is maybe about institutional memory, like holding some of that good stuff, letting the specifics go, but bringing back that wisdom and reintroducing it back into the ecology. And some of it is about stopping things to let new things grow. Because I think if we just simply keep doing stuff because we've always done it, then new ways of working, like random generating artist residency lotteries, won't come out and surprise us. But the notion that what was done or what is business as usual is all bad and needs to go, especially when you're thinking of a climate crisis. That's quite a lot of the narrative and the rhetoric. We must stop doing all of this. And actually there's good stuff there, and we need to steward and care and kindly transport some of it across to the new systems whilst we let some of it die.
はい、ありがとうございます。他、もう最後ぐらいになっちゃうんですけど、何か質問。
So this will be our last question that we can take here. Is there anybody? Yes, please go ahead.
Hi, thank you for your presentations. I was wondering, I think this question is for Clare mainly. May I call you Clare? Okay. But it might apply to the other institutions as well. In your presentation, you used the words ethics, care, concern, and I think that applies to not just human beings, but other entities that surround us. And you also mentioned or touched on the climate crisis, as well as like Black Lives Matter as well. And that sort of expands the concept, I think, a little bit in terms of who's a human being and who's not, and what should be our not the target, but who we should include into our community. And I was wondering what the official position or stance that you hold at Watershed, or even at Waag Futurelab or C-Lab.
Great question. This is something I think we've only just started to think about. I've got this vision for Watershed in 40 years' time, and I'm using the words wild and generous. And for me, wild is about nature as collaborators in that project. I keep thinking about what lab will our audience of 40 years' time need? Like, what will a cultural audience want? Like, they probably want cool space. Like, let's imagine the world's heated up pretty badly. Like, they probably want cool space. We probably want to plant. So I would like to like surround Watershed with a forest and build out into the water for biodiversity. So I think for us, it's about trying to bring nature back into the city and make a collaboration. But I think maybe the people who have biohacking labs, which I'm really jealous about, have some more interesting answers to that.
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's a super question. The first time I said that in our diversity and inclusion agenda, actually other species should be included as well. A lot of my colleagues were looking at me like, what is he talking about? But within the context of the Open Wet Lab, we do a lot of work with artists that are interested in so-called trans-species collaboration. But within the Urban Ecology Lab, there's also some models in development that are interesting, of which I can say a couple. Swiss artist Ursula Biemann, in her forest law project, for which she went to Ecuador, introduced that idea of the native population there, that they look at the forest and themselves within it as a possible legal entity that should be represented on an equal basis. How do you do that? That's very complex. In the Netherlands, we have the so-called Embassy of the North Sea, which is trying to do the same. And there is a couple of initiatives around rivers in Europe that are also doing that, trying to create a legal understanding of how to present others that cannot speak like us, but should have rights in order to have a balanced biodiversity. A very interesting other project is a project by British artist Martin House. You probably know him. He's collaborating with a community of local people, indigenous people, but also businesses in the Rio Plata River Basin, called biocultural corridors, where they are mapping all the extractive human activities against all the inclusive human activities there, and try to make another understanding as such. And I think these are very important cultural projects that we should take notice of in the light of our ecological concerns, and also the concerns of climate, not only climate crisis, but also climate injustice.
Well, thank you very much, but now we're approaching end time. but I believe our guests could stay for several minutes. So if you do have any questions, maybe you can approach them individually to ask them questions. Today, we were topicing on labs, and maybe something that was unclear to you when you first came to this venue maybe started to become much more clearer by listening to the presenters, and I think we were able to share information together. So going forward, something that is like lab or laboratories, I think going forward, many of the society will be asking for laboratories like us. I think we assume that. And because you too have that assumption, you are here today with us. So I think you've got to be clarifying what would be a future lab or laboratories. And that is done by Watershed and Waag, and CCBT, Contemporary Culture Lab, is also doing that. And CCBT is about to work on that. So any last comment from you?
Thank
you very much. We got a lot of keyword listening to you. So one by one, I would like to discuss the keywords with our staffs. If we don't have labs, there's no gateway for collaboration anymore. So today I felt that mission listening to the presenters. And thank you very much for the presenters, and thank you very much for the audience. Lastly, may we ask some comment from Shimada-san? Thank you very much for staying with us for a very long time. And we do have some announcement from CCBT starting February 19th, 5 days. There's the computational art design, and 40 people are going to be exhibiting the future program and the results that they have been working on.
From 2 p.m. tomorrow, there will be a premiere screening of a documentary film on the activities of the Future Tokyo Sports Festival, held as the opening event of CCBT and talk event by the production team. And in March, the CCBT Artist Fellows will be exhibiting the results of their work. As you mentioned, Tomokihara and Playful will hold an exhibition and workshop, Deviation Game version 1.0, a project to explore the mutual evolution of AI and humans through games, from March 4th. And from March 10th, Augmented Situation D, an exhibition by Kazuhiko Asami, God Scorpion, and Yoshida Yama to enjoy the fusion of AR on cell phones and artworks displayed in the CCBT and Shibuya Street. From March 18th, Sidecore will hold a roadwork version, Under City, a new installation exhibition by Roadwork that captures urban changes such as earthquake, reconstruction, and urban development from the perspective of skateboarding. Please visit our CCBT website, and kindly please take a moment to complete the survey. With that, we would like to conclude today's CCBT meetup. Hello, Laboratories. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Please give another round of applause to our guest speakers from overseas.